Okay, now we have Faisal Lawal in the studio. Faisal, good morning and welcome to the program.
Good morning. Thank you.
Okay, before now, we've been discussing with Dominic Philip from Kaduna State, and he's giving us idea of what election violence is all about. Now, what is your take when we say election violence in the country?
Election violence is obtainable all over the world from the beginning of democracy itself. Part of the founding fathers of the modern type of presidential democracy are the United States of America. And you would realize that they actually grew from understanding electoral violence, where gunmen will come and snatch ballot boxes. Almost everything that is done in our country has been done before. So from my studies and research, I wonder why we actually don't delve back into history and see how others have been able to call their own matters. So the reality about election violence is obtainable, even in developed countries. What they did or what they have done to mitigate it is what we should practice, learn, and see how to even become better. Because I'm a person of a school of thought that says if you find a good teacher, then the student should be better than the teacher. That is my own perspective. So election violence is obtainable, but it can actually be removed, alleviated, reduced to a large extent only where you find the willingness by the operators and the actors in election violence, which often at times you would see that the person who realizes he is losing votes in some areas is the one who would actually sponsor or assign some thugs to go and cause mayhem in the environment so that other factors will now play and that will not be canvassed. So the votes in that particular area will not be told together.
Okay, now when we look at the political, or let me say the politicians' part of their own contribution towards election violence, we cannot also run away from the fact that in the past we had a manual procedure of voting, where that's the INEC. But then of recent we've seen a major improvement. Could that be one of the major causes in the past that yes, it is the process that led to the declaration of result that normally brings up election violence?
Being a person that has training in ICT, I would tell you that, and also some level of security understanding. In my own opinion, wherever you think you have curtained or veiled a particular crime, do not be confident about it. Because I have come to the understanding again that criminals who want to go beyond the security limitations are always at work and they never sleep. So saying we have certain things in order is normal. It's human for us to have those things in order. But it doesn't mean it will entirely eliminate certain electoral malpractices.
Okay, let's go back to Dominic Philip. Dominic Philip, you've heard what he said with regards to that. And what is your take on it?
Say again, please.
I said, what is your take on what Faisal Lawal just said with regards to the issue of election violence?
No, absolutely true and fact that the politicians will always feel the fear of wanting to lose elections, or the fear of losing election in a particular region or state, prompts or predicts the politicians who want to cause violence at some polling units that they feel they are disadvantaged. So as the results from those polling units will not count against them or being cancelled, the results will be cancelled, and as such, where they think they have dominance or their strongholds will be used to count. They will be used to rather announce or make them win such elections. Very
Okay,
true. Very true.
now you partook in so many elections. You serve as also part of those civil societies that make sure that yes, we have a peaceful election across the country. What are the major steps that we need to take newly with this present electoral act? Because we've seen INEC carrying out election result being transmitted electronically. So what do you think are the necessary things that we need to put in place?
First, I think I want to commend INEC for that, which that particular act alone will go a long way towards curbing electoral violences. Though that will just help in reducing the rate of rigging as a result of transmitting results from the polling units to the ward to the local government coalition center. It's just that movement alone that has been able to help curb, because the result of each polling unit will be transmitted via electronically before even the hard copy of the results gets to the ward or to the local government coalition center. The electronic electronically transmitted result would have gotten to the collation center even before the hard copy. But I think a lot needed to be done. A lot will have to be put in place to curb such. Like I've stated earlier on, security agencies will also have to be on their toes to see that violence during elections are taken care of. Those who, if in an area it has succeeded or they have succeeded in perpetrating this act, then the culprits should be brought to book or should be arrested and prosecuted accordingly and immediately. So they don't have any room to say their godfathers or those who have sent them to perpetrate this act will in turn comfort and seek their bail or get to see that the justice system is being truncated. INEC will also
First, let
have
me
to see
listen
to,
to
like I
Dominic
said
Philip
earlier on,
with regards
to the
to
installation of
submission. But
CCTV
then, when you
cameras.
look at the security condition in the country presently, you know definitely there are so many challenges. For instance, if you look at the Osun State, the Ondo State election, you discover that so many of the policemen were taken from various states and then told down to Ondo State. Will that be okay for us in the 2023 general election?
Speaking from positivity and being optimistic, I can also confirm that electioneering process in Nigeria, people are participating in active politics has improved. Also the exercise of politics itself has also improved over the days. Rigging from the history of graduation through our elections, from probably the ones before the recent Republic of 1999, it's also being mitigated. Rigging is also being reduced. Why? Because we are gaining more and more awareness about what should be done and not. We cannot shy away from the reality, which is a fact. Many of us can actually prove it. In many occasions, we have the security operatives working in our favor. But you would also realize that in most of these processes where the malpractice take place, you would see that their hand also is all over there. Like they are the ones who give cover to those who are going to come and cause mayhem because they are probably bought by some and easily bought. You see, in Africa, Nigeria, Africa generally, we need to be able to understand that we should always learn from those who were there before, because almost everything we're doing in terms of governance, we copied it. How many years ago? Just 60. When we have others who have been in it for more than 300 years and above. So why can't you learn from them, but be better? In my own opinion, you can also have, the way you have special marshals in some cases, you have veterans, people who have been in the security operatives. You can also get a clique of certain security operatives from this election part of probably, let's say, 2023 to 2027. You have certain security members of the community that you have trained. And they will not be recruited only and until the election process comes. And they would have a different unit that will handle them. If you want to arm them, fine. Even if you don't arm them, to a large extent, there are certain people that when they are with the security operatives will have to do the right thing because it's your word against them and you are the superior there, whether armed or unarmed. Do you understand? So it's also a solution. You get certain people who are not even exposed to the politicians who would want to fill up their pockets, and you can man them with cameras all over them. Because normally it's all about come to the side, you give him one rap, and then, he changes his opinion. But when he's manned with camera all over him, all he's doing is being an observer, the whole world is watching him, you would also go a long way to reduce the malpractice.
Oh, that's the improvement, and then we're using technology during election is very, very important. But then, to Dominic, now looking at one major issue that normally brings up the issue of violence during election are religious leaders. You've seen religious leaders trying to increase the tempo or the quality of the politics at that particular point in time. But then still, I believe you are hearing about it. If you are not, let me come back to Faisal quickly. The issue of religion in politics is becoming so glaring. When we are moving closer to general elections, you discover that states where there is no polarity, or probably you have a state dominated by one particular religion, the issue of religious politics doesn't really take much hands in it. But then for general election like 2023 election, we do have issues of religion and religious leaders taking position, aggravating the situation. How can we tame them down? Because they also contribute to this.
Let the law apply to them.
Let the law apply to them.
It doesn't matter who they are.
Okay, it doesn't matter. So now, for you, Dominic, are you there?
Yeah, I'm with you.
Okay, Dominic, okay, you are back. You've heard what Faisal said. I just asked him the question. For those religious leaders who try to eat up the polity and the politics, he just responded by saying that let the law apply to them. What is your take?
Yeah, the law should apply to them, but how would the law then now apply to them? Because they will be seen as not committing any crime. They are only preaching sermons, and according to their doctrines, they will need to educate their followers on who or why you should support a candidate, or why you should go and stand firm in defense of whoever you are supporting. So to them, they will perceive that as not a crime. But let us have a law prohibiting those acts. Let us tame these religious leaders. That, in fact, that is why sometimes I want to agree with the fact that we should also have a religious regulatory act in this country. That there are areas where religious leaders should not even comment or should not talk, or even if they will have to, they should then go in a particular direction or a particular line, not instigating persons. We have seen clips around prior to just these 2023 elections by the corner. We have seen clips around showing religious leaders making comments that are very inflammatory, that are very that are not rather mounting or pushing more flames or increasing the flames that the already tense situations that we have in the country. So I think we should have a religious prohibiting or act, or we should have an election in our electoral act. We should have a clause taming these religious leaders from making some inflammatory statements. By so doing, that is when the law now then can apply to them by saying, if you do this or you go against this or incite a certain number of persons or incite your followers, then the law should take its course. As regards
Okay.
to that,
Your constituents, that's the youth, are one of the promoters, to say, when it comes to the issue of electoral violence, and most especially the pre and post-election violence. What have you, or what is the message you have for them?
I have always said this and want to reiterate it here. These leaders, these politicians that we have always followed, have at every point exempted their wards, their children from partaking or participating actively in this electoral process. So if you think you are a young person who is taking his or her neck to promote a particular politician, who his own children are not part and parcel of the electoral process, then it means you are not doing it. You are not being fair to yourself. So we should be able to see as young persons that at this point, we should also be part of it. We should be able to engage our fellow young men in constructive criticism or support for any politician, not taking up arms, not disrupting the process. Totally wrong. So I want to call on every young person, to actively participate in the process instead of taking part in disrupting or destroying the system.
Okay, thank you. Let me quickly come back to Faisal. Faisal, same question to you. You've seen the youth are also part of those that promote violence, and you also contested, I believe, in the past. You've contested before?
Never contested.
You've never contested, but then, okay, you've been an aspirant in the past, and you know definitely when you talk about election violence, you cannot take it, or you cannot separate it from the youth. What will you say to the youth as 2023 is drawing closer?
What will I say to the youth? When I'm cornered to say what will I say to the youth, I'm a person of certain principles. I actually teach where the teaching is worthy. I come to an event and I'm asked to speak. If the audience are noisy, I don't speak. Especially when you say, come tell them something, maybe give them a closing prayer, a closing remark, like who are you talking to? Yes, we should talk to the youths, but who are the actors among the youths that participate in violence? Is talking enough? Talking is not enough. There are certain things to do why they will not participate. Until you do that, they will definitely participate wherever the pocket is calling them. There's no doubt about it.
So what are these things that we need to put in place for them, for those people, the actors, the actual actors, for them to be brought to book?
When I said let the law apply to them, I have consulted with many legal professionals, and whenever I talk about something, I would realize it's actually a law in that regards. The only failure is enforcement. A very quick short story. I had traveled in a different country. I had a high speed, approached the junction, and I crossed the light. And before I could go 3 seconds beyond, an SMS came with my fine as a student. Now, I paid that money. For the rest of my stay in that country, I did not beat the light again because it was painful. The amount of money I had to carry myself, jejely. I didn't cut corners, no policeman to bribe. I carried myself. In more than 30 days, 1 month, the fine will double. I went, removed my hard-earned money for my own crime, my own mistake, and I paid. But for the rest of my stay there, I became a legal immigrant or a legal resident in the country. So what am I saying? Even in our country, you would find, I don't know if ever any of you have seen, you would see foreigners coming to this country, their driving misbehavior is increasing. It tells you it's not about the gene, it's not about being black or white. It's simply about enforcement. We are not enforcing the law, so they will join us in breaking it. You go there, they're enforcing the law, you will have to join them in being law-abiding. I hope that answers your question.
Okay, let me still go back to Dominic. Now, if you listen carefully, the issue of enforcement is one major problem. But then as we round up the program, now, when you look at the issue of enforcement, you also look at the issue of the security that seem not to be very, very much. How do we tackle all this when those that are supposed to be enforcing the laws are not really sufficient enough for us to get up to all the culprits that we have on the streets?
That is where the use of technology comes to play now. Just like we have said, if our justice system is working, prosecuting those who are found wanting in whichever crime it is, be it elections crime or otherwise, then we don't need a billion policemen to police the society. The number we have, especially as it regards election, of course we know cannot cover the entire country during elections. So if we have the CCTV cameras like we have suggested earlier on, it will go a long way at virtually every polling unit.
Okay, thank you, Dominic, for bringing up that resolution with regards to that. This is how far we can go with you. Thank you for joining us on the program, the Roundtable, this morning. So, Faisal, on a last note, what do you have to say?
To the leaders that have the power to save the country, if you've been doing enough, and mostly they are believers, and I can say categorically, being a part of Interfaith for several years, neither of the major religions in Nigeria approve of any of the wrongdoings that we're doing. Rather, we're using the same religion to cash out, either by privilege, economic-wise, or other advantages. You should know that you are old and your time is expired. Use the last minutes to redeem yourself and gain the pleasure of God. Otherwise, the damnation from us, the citizens, and of course, until you meet your Creator, will abound with you.
Okay, thank you so much, Faisal, then Dominic, for joining us this morning on the Roundtable program. This is how far we can go. My name is Issa Nu. Let's stop or let's kick against violence during and before or after election. Thank you so much for joining us this morning.